8 o'clock in the morning. A mother opens the door to her son's bedroom. A blanket covers a body on the bed. As she steps closer, she discovers what no one ever wants to see: a corpse, but without a head. The crime scene is so bizarre that when police officers first enter, their throats burn from the overwhelming smell of ammonia and bleach. Some officers even remark that the body appears to be smoking. 3 questions hang in the air. Questions that would haunt investigators for months. Where is the head? Why is the crime scene so unnaturally clean, with almost no trace of a murder weapon? And why does this death reveal a family secret so disturbing that it turns every relationship upside down? If you want to dive deep into one of the most complex and chilling cases to emerge from Henderson, Nevada, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We're going to walk through every documented detail, every piece of evidence, and every courtroom revelation in this case that shocked an entire community. This is the story of Jonathan Willette, a 46-year-old man who was murdered in his own home on August the 7th, 2023, in a crime so meticulously executed that it left investigators grappling with more questions than answers. Welcome back to our channel, where we explore the darkest corners of true crime with respect for the victims and dedication to the facts. Today we're examining a case that involves not just a brutal killing, but a web of family dysfunction, forbidden relationships, and evidence that seemed to vanish into thin air. As we always do, we'll stick to the documented evidence, the official court records, and the investigative timeline. If you're new here, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our deep dives into cases like this one. Before we can understand how Jonathan Willette died, we need to understand who he was. Born at a U.S. Air Force Base hospital in Tokyo, Jonathan lived a life marked by constant movement in his early years before eventually settling in Henderson, Nevada. For more than 20 years, he worked in timeshare sales, a job that required charisma and persistence. Later in life, he started his own moving company, which locals knew as Vegas Moving Guy. Those who knew Jonathan described him as friendly and outgoing, someone who seemed to have his life together, despite the complexities that swirled beneath the surface. Jonathan had 3 children. His 2 youngest daughters, both under the age of 10, lived with him full-time. He had full custody of the girls, while their mother, a woman named Devon Michaels, was allowed only supervised visitation. Then there was Jonathan's oldest child, a 27-year-old son named Deviere, who worked as a security systems technician, specializing in cameras and surveillance equipment. The relationship between father and son had been close for years, but that bond shattered when Jonathan discovered something he never could have anticipated. His son had secretly married Devon Michaels, the mother of Jonathan's 2 youngest daughters. The revelation created a family structure that defied conventional understanding. Deviere became simultaneously stepfather to his own half-sisters and stepbrother to them through his marriage to their mother. Jonathan's reaction was immediate and visceral. Text messages recovered during the investigation showed his shock and anger. One message to his son read simply, "You have nothing to tell me, WTF." The relationship between father and son fractured seemingly beyond repair. But in the days leading up to August the 7th, 2023, something appeared to change. According to Jonathan's mother, Yoko, who lived at the residence on Paladura Drive in Henderson, Jonathan had been preparing to move out of her home and back in with Devon and Deviere. The plan, as Yoko understood it, was for the family to reconcile and live together in a more traditional arrangement at the home Devon shared with Deviere on Porcupine Rim. Jonathan had been packing his belongings and purchasing back-to-school supplies for his daughters. To those watching from the outside, it seemed like the family was attempting to heal. August 6, 2023 began as what appeared to be a normal day. Location data from cell phones and surveillance footage from various locations would later allow investigators to reconstruct the movements of Jonathan, Devon, and Deviere with remarkable precision. Deviere stayed home that day watching the children while Jonathan and Devon went out together. They purchased school supplies for the upcoming academic year and continued the process of moving Jonathan's belongings from Yoko's house to the Porcupine Rim residence. Security cameras and phone data tracked their movements throughout the day, creating a digital trail that would become crucial to the investigation. At approximately 8 o'clock in the evening on August 6th, Jonathan and Devon arrived at the Paladura Drive residence, the home where Yoko lived with her boyfriend Yosha. They spent time there continuing to sort through Jonathan's possessions. At 10:12 p.m. surveillance cameras captured them returning to the Paladura residence. Investigators would later determine that Jonathan was murdered sometime after 10:12 p.m. that night and before 2:04 a.m. on August 7th. This 4-hour window became the crucial time frame that investigators would scrutinize in minute detail. At approximately 11 o'clock that night, a neighbor's security camera captured footage of someone opening Jonathan's Nissan vehicle, placing something inside, and then repositioning the car to a spot outside the camera's field of view. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, Yoko came downstairs to the kitchen and encountered Devon. The two women spoke for about 15 minutes. Devon told Yoko that Jonathan was sleeping. Yoko would later tell investigators that she noticed nothing unusual about Devon's appearance. No blood, no signs of distress, nothing to suggest that anything was wrong. At 2:04 a.m., surveillance cameras recorded Jonathan's Nissan leaving the Paladura Drive residence. Cell phone location data showed that both Devon's phone and Jonathan's phone traveled together from Paladura Drive back to the Porcupine Rim residence where Devon lived with Deviere. At 2:29 a.m., Devon was captured on CVS pharmacy drive-through cameras picking up medication for one of the children. The pharmacy employee who served her noticed nothing unusual. Devon appeared calm and collected with no visible signs of blood or distress on her clothing or demeanor. When morning came, Yoko woke and noticed that Jonathan's bedroom door was still closed. She called out to him but received no response. Concerned, she opened the door and stepped inside. What she saw would change everything. Jonathan's body lay face down on the bed covered with sheets, but his head was missing, completely severed from his body. Blood stained the bedding, though notably less than one might expect from such a violent act. Yoko's boyfriend Yosha immediately called 911. Police arrived at the 2000 block of Paladura Drive shortly before 9 o'clock in the morning on August 7, 2023. What they found was a crime scene that defied easy explanation. Jonathan's body lay on the bed in a prone position covered with sheets and blankets. His head had been removed and was nowhere to be found in the residence. But what struck investigators as even more unusual was the condition of the crime scene itself. For a decapitation that presumably occurred in this bedroom, there was remarkably little evidence of the violent act. The scene was, in the words of multiple investigators, unnaturally clean. Officers immediately noticed the overwhelming smell of chemical cleaning agents. Ammonia and bleach bottles were found in the hallway near the bedroom. The fumes were so strong that they caused burning sensations in the officers' throats and nostrils. Some investigators reported that the body appeared to be smoking, or giving off vapors, a phenomenon they attributed to chemical reactions still occurring on the corpse. The intensity of the fumes forced crime scene photographers to work as quickly as possible, concerned that the chemicals might pose a fire hazard or health risk. Other details at the scene raised immediate questions. A pair of underwear lay on the floor near the bed. 2 belts were found tied in knots. The absence of any obvious murder weapon was puzzling. If someone had decapitated Jonathan in this room, where were the tools used to do it? Where was all the blood that should have resulted from such an act? The forensic examination of Jonathan's body revealed findings that only deepened the mystery. The medical examiner determined that the decapitation was performed post-mortem, meaning Jonathan was already dead when his head was removed. The body showed evidence of having been treated with caustic cleaning chemicals after death, causing chemical burns to the skin. But here was the most perplexing conclusion. The medical examiner could not definitively determine the actual cause of Jonathan's death. The official finding stated that Jonathan died from homicidal violence. But the specific nature of that violence remained, in the medical examiner's own words, undetermined. A forensic expert who examined the body noted that 2 different types of tools had been used in the decapitation. Initially, someone had used a handheld cutting implement, creating what forensic specialists call hesitation marks, superficial cuts that suggest uncertainty or difficulty. Then a powered cutting tool, likely an electric saw or similar mechanical device, was used to complete the severing of the head. This suggested a level of premeditation and determination that chilled investigators. The question emerged: was the purpose of the decapitation to kill Jonathan, or was it to obscure the actual cause of death? As investigators began interviewing family members and collecting evidence, the complex web of relationships within Jonathan's household came into sharper focus. Devon Michaels, they learned, had used multiple names and identities over the years. Yoko knew her as Nikki. The history between Devon and Deviere was even more complicated than initially understood. According to documentation that emerged during the investigation, Devon had been in a secret relationship with Deviere when he was just 19 years old, at a time when she was still involved with Jonathan and was the mother of his 2 young daughters. The marriage between Devon and Deviere had occurred in secret, and when Jonathan discovered it, his reaction was explosive. The text message he sent to his son, "You have nothing to tell me, WTF," captured his shock and betrayal. But then came the apparent reconciliation in the days before the murder. According to Yoko, Jonathan had been planning to move in with Devon and Deviere, bringing his daughters to live in what was supposed to be a reconstituted family household. Whether this reconciliation was genuine or whether it masked deeper tensions would become a central question in the investigation. In the days following the discovery of Jonathan's body, investigators executed search warrants at multiple locations. At the Porcupine Rim residence where Devon and Deviere lived, they found items that raised immediate red flags. Jonathan's personal identification documents, including his driver's license, his truck keys, and his social security card, were found hidden in the home. Why would these items be there if, as Devon and Deviere claimed, Jonathan had never arrived at their house that night? Even more damning was the discovery of Jonathan's cell phone. It was found lying in the grass near the driveway of the Porcupine Rim residence, and it had what appeared to be blood on it. Laboratory testing confirmed that the phone belonged to Jonathan, and that the substance on it was indeed blood matching Jonathan's DNA. The phone's location data told a story that contradicted the claims being made by those in the house. It showed that Jonathan's phone had traveled from Paladura Drive to Porcupine Rim in the early morning hours of August 7th during the exact time frame when his Nissan was captured on camera leaving Yoko's residence. Despite the apparent cleanliness of the Paladura crime scene, forensic technicians found chemical cleaning products that became crucial evidence. Bottles of ammonia and bleach discovered in the hallway tested positive for Devon's DNA. Moreover, these products matched the brands and types of cleaning supplies found at Devon's own residence. The implication was clear. Someone had made a deliberate and extensive effort to clean the crime scene using powerful chemicals, likely in an attempt to destroy or obscure evidence. On August 15, 2023, approximately 1 week after Jonathan's body was discovered, Devon Michaels was arrested and brought in for questioning. During her interrogation, she provided a version of events that investigators found both revealing and incomplete. Devon claimed that she had given Jonathan a massage on the evening of August 6th. During this massage, she said Jonathan had touched her inappropriately, making unwanted sexual advances. In response, Devon stated that she grabbed a wooden object, the exact nature of which she could not or would not specify, and struck Jonathan on the head with it. She insisted that Jonathan was still breathing when she left the room, and vehemently denied having any involvement in his decapitation. Devon's account raised more questions than it answered. She claimed that Jonathan had cut his hand, which explained why his blood was on his cell phone. However, the medical examiner's report contradicted this explanation. The autopsy found no injuries to Jonathan's hands. The only bleeding documented by the medical examiner came from the neck area where the head had been severed. Devon's story about the cut hand appeared to be fabricated. Investigators also noted other inconsistencies in Devon's statements. She could not adequately explain why Jonathan's personal documents were hidden in her home, why his phone was found in her yard, or why the chemical cleaning products matching those at the crime scene were in her possession. The timeline constructed from cell phone data and surveillance footage placed Devon at the Paladura residence during the critical hours when Jonathan was killed, and then showed her traveling back to Porcupine Rim with Jonathan's phone, despite her claims that he had never made it to her house. Based on the accumulating evidence, prosecutors charged Devon Michaels with first-degree murder with the use of a deadly weapon. As the case moved toward trial, Devon's legal strategy became clear. Her defense team did not deny that Jonathan had been killed, but they argued that Devon was not the one who killed him. Instead, they pointed to Deviere, Devon's husband, and Jonathan's son as the actual perpetrator. The defense's theory was that Deviere had the strongest motive to kill his father. According to this argument, Deviere feared that if Jonathan moved into the Porcupine Rim residence, he would lose both his wife and his home. The prospect of his father reasserting control over the household and potentially reclaiming Devon would have given Deviere a powerful reason to want Jonathan dead. The defense suggested that Deviere could have left his phone at home to create an alibi while he traveled to Paladura Drive to commit the murder. The prosecution's case against this theory rested heavily on surveillance evidence. Security cameras showed Deviere's work truck parked at the Porcupine Rim residence throughout the entire night and into the morning when he left for work. The residential area where Devon and Deviere lived had only one entrance and exit, and cameras covered this route. There was no video evidence of Deviere's truck leaving the property during the crucial hours when Jonathan was killed. However, the defense team had a ready response. They pointed out that Deviere worked as a security systems technician who installed cameras for a living. Of all people, he would understand camera blind spots and angles. He would know how to avoid detection. The defense also raised questions about footprints found in the backyard of the Paladura residence that were never fully investigated or matched to any individual. Could Deviere have approached the house on foot, staying out of camera range? Throughout the trial, which took place in late 2025, both sides presented extensive evidence and called numerous witnesses. The prosecution built a methodical case based on forensic evidence, cell phone data surveillance footage, and Devon's own contradictory statements. They argued that Devon had killed Jonathan in a moment of violence, possibly related to the complex emotional dynamics of their relationship, and then had attempted to cover her tracks by cleaning the crime scene and disposing of evidence. The defense challenged every aspect of the state's case, questioning the thoroughness of the police investigation. They highlighted what they saw as critical gaps in the evidence collection. Why hadn't investigators used luminol testing to detect cleaned-up blood at the scene? Why hadn't they done more to investigate alternative suspects? The defense raised the possibility that Jonathan might have been killed elsewhere and his body transported back to the bedroom, which would explain the relatively small amount of blood at the scene. One particularly contentious point involved a butcher knife that was reportedly missing from the kitchen in Yoko and Yosha's home. Multiple witnesses testified about this knife, yet it was never recovered. Could this have been the murder weapon? And if so, where was it now? The defense suggested that the missing knife pointed to another killer, someone who had access to the Paladura residence and who had not been adequately investigated. The question of Jonathan's severed head remained one of the most haunting aspects of the case. Despite extensive searches, it was never found. Investigators theorized that evidence, possibly including the head and the murder weapons, might have been disposed of in a neighbor's trash can just before garbage collection on the morning of August 7th. If this theory was correct, the crucial evidence had been hauled away to a landfill before police even arrived at the scene. On November 14th, 2025, after less than 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. They found Devon Michaels guilty of first-degree murder with the use of a deadly weapon. The relatively quick deliberation suggested that the jurors had been convinced by the prosecution's presentation of evidence, despite the defense's attempts to cast doubt on Devon's sole culpability. Sentencing was scheduled for January 8, 2026. Devon faces a potential sentence ranging from 51 years to life in prison. As of the conclusion of the trial, Jonathan's head has still not been recovered. The exact murder weapon has never been definitively identified, and the precise cause of Jonathan's death beyond the medical examiner's conclusion of homicidal violence remains technically undetermined. The case of Jonathan Willette stands as a stark reminder of how family dysfunction and toxic relationships can culminate in unthinkable tragedy. A man who spent his final days apparently trying to reconcile with his fractured family ended up dead in the most brutal circumstances imaginable, his body desecrated and his head taken as if to erase his very identity. 3 children lost their father, a mother lost her son, and an entire community was left to grapple with the knowledge that such violence had occurred in their midst. The verdict brings a measure of legal closure, but many questions linger. The 4-hour window between 10 to 12 p.m. and 2 a.m. on that August night remains a source of public speculation and debate. Exactly who did what during those hours and why may never be fully known. The truth of what happened in that bedroom, the moments of violence that ended Jonathan's life, went to the grave with him, or perhaps lies hidden in the mind of someone who has not spoken the complete truth. What we can say with certainty is what the jury concluded based on the evidence presented to them, that Devon Michaels was responsible for Jonathan Willette's death. The American legal system, built on the principle that guilt must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, has rendered its judgment. Whether that judgment brings peace to those who loved Jonathan, or whether it simply marks the end of one chapter in an ongoing nightmare, only time will tell. What remains is the imperative that such cases remind us of the importance of thorough investigation, the need for justice to be pursued with both determination and fairness, and the recognition that behind every criminal case are real people whose lives have been irrevocably changed. If you've followed this case with us, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments, always keeping in mind that we discuss these cases based on facts and official findings, not speculation. What aspects of the evidence did you find most compelling? What questions do you still have? And if you want us to continue bringing you detailed fact-based examinations of the most complex and haunting criminal cases, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We have more cases to explore, more stories to tell, and more truths to uncover. Thank you for watching, and remember, in the pursuit of justice, every detail matters.